What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks into what he thinks is a friendly late-night interview, only to discover the host has a completely different agenda? In just 26 seconds, Jimmy Kimmel would make a comment so shocking, so completely out of line, that it would turn a routine promotional appearance into the most explosive television moment of the year. This is the exclusive inside story of how Denzel Washington got kicked off Jimmy Kimmel Live last night, and trust me, you need to hear every single word of what really went down. The studio lights were blazing hot as usual when Denzel Washington walked onto the Jimmy Kimmel Live stage. The audience was electric, clapping and cheering for one of the most beloved actors of our time. Denzel looked sharp in his dark navy suit, that familiar warm smile spreading across his face as he waved to the crowd. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Just another night, just another interview. Jimmy Kimmel sat behind his desk, grinning that wide smile he's known for. But something was different tonight. There was an edge to his expression, something lurking behind those eyes that the audience couldn't see yet. The producers had briefed him on the talking points. Keep it light, keep it fun, promote the new movie. Standard stuff. But Jimmy had other plans brewing in his mind. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incredible Denzel Washington," Jimmy announced, his voice booming through the studio speakers. The crowd erupted again as Denzel made his way over to the guest chair, shaking Jimmy's hand with that genuine warmth he's famous for. "Great to be here, Jimmy," Denzel said, settling into the chair and adjusting his jacket. "Thanks for having me on." "Oh, the pleasure is all mine, believe me," Jimmy replied, but there was something in his tone that didn't quite match his words. "You look fantastic, by the way. How are you feeling?" "Feeling good, man. Really good. Just wrapped up this amazing project. Got some family time in." "Life is good," Denzel answered, his voice carrying that deep, rich quality that has captivated audiences for decades. The interview started off exactly like you'd expect. Jimmy asked about Denzel's new movie, about working with the director, about his preparation for the role. Denzel answered each question with his usual thoughtfulness and charm. He told a funny story about being on set, made the audience laugh with a perfectly timed impression of his co-star. Everything was going smoothly. "You know, Denzel," Jimmy said, leaning back in his chair, "I've always wondered something about you. You've been in this business for what, 30 years now?" "Something like that, yeah." Denzel nodded. "And in all that time, you've managed to stay so clean, so respectable, so perfect, really." Jimmy's voice had shifted slightly. The warmth was fading, replaced by something cooler, more calculated. Denzel raised an eyebrow. "I wouldn't say perfect, Jimmy. Nobody's perfect." "Oh, but you are though, aren't you?" Jimmy continued, and now his smile was looking forced. "The perfect actor, the perfect family man, the perfect role model. It's almost too good to be true, don't you think?" The audience was still smiling, but some people were starting to sense the shift in energy. Denzel himself looked slightly confused, tilting his head as he tried to read where this was going. "I just try to do right by people, Jimmy. Try to be authentic. That's all any of us can do," Denzel replied diplomatically. "Authentic," Jimmy repeated, like he was tasting the word. "That's interesting, because I've been hearing some things lately. Some very interesting things about the real Denzel Washington." Now the confusion on Denzel's face was unmistakable. "What kind of things?" Jimmy leaned forward, his elbows on his desk, and that's when everyone watching could see it. This wasn't friendly banter anymore. This was something else entirely. "Well, there are people saying that maybe you're not quite as squeaky clean as you pretend to be, that maybe there are some things in your past that don't quite match up with this perfect image you've cultivated." The studio had gone very quiet now. Even the audience could feel the tension building. Denzel sat up straighter in his chair, his jaw tightening just slightly. "Jimmy, I'm not sure what you're getting at here, but if you've got something to say, maybe you should just say it directly." "Oh, I plan to," Jimmy said, and his smile had completely disappeared now. "I plan to say it very directly." The camera caught everything. The way Denzel's hands gripped the arms of his chair, the way Jimmy's eyes had gone cold, the way the entire studio seemed to hold its breath, sensing that something big was about to happen. "You see, Denzel, I think people deserve to know the truth about their heroes. And the truth is, you're not who you pretend to be." Jimmy's voice was getting louder now, more aggressive. "You want to sit there and act like you're this pillar of the community, this moral authority. But I know better." Denzel's voice remained calm, but there was steel in it now. "Jimmy, I think you need to be very careful about what you're saying here." "Careful?" Jimmy laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Why should I be careful? Are you threatening me?" "I'm not threatening anybody. I'm just saying that if you're going to make accusations, you better have facts to back them up." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut, The producers in the control room were frantically trying to figure out what to do. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't planned. Jimmy had gone completely off the rails, and Denzel was starting to realize just how bad this situation was becoming. Facts? Jimmy stood up from behind his desk now, pointing his finger at Denzel. I'll give you facts. I've got sources, real sources, who say you're nothing like the saint you pretend to be. Denzel remained seated, but his entire body was tense. What sources? Who are these people? People who know you, people who've worked with you, people who've seen the real you when the cameras aren't rolling. That's interesting, Jimmy, because everyone I've worked with over the years has been nothing but supportive, so I'd really like to know who these mysterious sources are. Jimmy was pacing now, his voice getting more heated with every word. You want names? Fine. Let's start with your time on the set of your last movie. Word is you were completely unprofessional, demanding, difficult to work with. Denzel finally stood up, his full height impressive even next to Jimmy's desk. That is completely false, and you know it. The director himself praised my professionalism. The entire cast and crew would back me up on that. Would they, though? Jimmy shot back. Or are they just too intimidated by your reputation to speak up? The audience was completely silent now. This had gone way beyond uncomfortable. This was turning into something ugly, something that nobody had expected to witness. Denzel took a deep breath, and when he spoke, his voice was controlled but firm. Jimmy, I came here tonight to talk about my movie and have a good time with your audience. I don't know what this is about, but I think we need to pump the brakes here. But Jimmy wasn't done, not even close. Pump the brakes? Jimmy's voice was dripping with sarcasm now. Why would I do that? We're just getting started here, Denzel. The audience deserves to hear this. The audience deserves to hear lies? Denzel shot back, his patience clearly running thin, because that's all you've given them so far. Jimmy walked around his desk now, getting closer to where Denzel was standing. The cameras followed every movement, capturing the raw tension that was filling the studio. You know what I think? Jimmy said, his voice getting nastier with each word. I think you've been fooling everyone for years, playing this character, this good guy role, when the reality is completely different. Denzel crossed his arms over his chest. And what reality is that, Jimmy? Please, enlighten us all. The reality where you think you're better than everyone else, where you look down on people like me, people who actually earn their way up instead of getting handed everything because of how they look? A collective gasp went through the audience. Even the camera operators seemed stunned by what Jimmy had just said. The implication was clear, and it was ugly. Denzel's expression darkened. Excuse me? You heard me, Jimmy continued, seemingly oblivious to how far over the line he'd just stepped. Some people have to work twice as hard to get half as far in this business, while others just get opportunity after opportunity handed to them. Jimmy, you need to stop right there, Denzel said, his voice low and dangerous. You have no idea what you're talking about. But Jimmy was on a roll now, completely lost in his own rant. Do I? Because from where I sit, it looks like you've had a pretty easy ride. All these prestigious roles, all these awards, all this respect. Must be nice. The studio was dead silent except for Jimmy's voice. Even his own band members looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact with anyone. Easy ride? Denzel repeated, and there was genuine anger in his voice now. You think what I've accomplished has been easy? Well, let's just say some people have advantages others don't, Jimmy said, with a shrug that made everything worse. That was it. That was the moment when everyone watching knew this had crossed from uncomfortable into completely unacceptable. Denzel took a step closer to Jimmy, his presence commanding and powerful. Let me tell you something, Jimmy, Denzel said, his voice quiet but carrying throughout the entire studio. I have worked every single day for 30 years to earn everything I have. Every role, every award, every bit of respect. I've been professional, I've been dedicated, and I've treated everyone I've worked with fairly and kindly. Jimmy tried to interrupt, but Denzel held up a hand. I'm not finished, Denzel continued. You invited me onto your show tonight, and I came here in good faith. I came here to promote my work and to entertain your audience. But instead, you've decided to attack me with baseless accusations and frankly some pretty disturbing implications about how I've achieved my success. The audience was hanging on every word. This wasn't just a celebrity dust-up anymore. This was a man defending his integrity and his life's work against someone who had completely lost control. Now hold on, Jimmy started to say, finally seeming to realize he might have gone too far. No, you hold on, Denzel shot back, his voice rising for the first time. You want to talk about advantages? Let's talk about advantages. You think I've had it easy because of how I look? You think my success has been handed to me? Jimmy's face was getting red now. Whether from embarrassment or continued anger, nobody could tell. You know what real advantage looks like, Jimmy? Denzel continued. Real advantage is getting to host your own television show and then using that platform to tear down guests who come on in good faith. Real advantage is having a microphone and a camera and deciding to use it to spread lies and innuendo. They're not lies, Jimmy insisted, but his voice was weaker now. Then prove it, Denzel challenged. Right here, right now. Give me one specific example, with names and dates and witnesses. Just one. Jimmy opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked around the studio as if searching for help, but everyone was staring at him, waiting for an answer he clearly didn't have. My sources. Your sources what? Denzel pressed. Your sources don't exist? Your sources are just gossip and rumors you decided to treat as fact? The silence stretched on. Jimmy was cornered, and everyone in the room could see it. His big accusations, his aggressive confrontation, all of it was crumbling because he had nothing real to back it up. You know what the real tragedy is here? Denzel said, shaking his head. I actually used to respect you. I thought you were a decent guy who happened to be funny. I never would have guessed you were the kind of person who would pull something like this. Denzel, look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. Jimmy tried to backtrack, his whole demeanor changing as he realized how badly this was going. Wrong foot? Denzel laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jimmy, you just spent the last 10 minutes trying to destroy my reputation on national television. You made implications about my character, my work ethic, and frankly, about how I've achieved success in ways that sound pretty uncomfortable when you really think about what you were saying. Jimmy's face went pale. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Denzel asked pointedly. Because from where I'm standing, it sounded like you were suggesting that my success has more to do with my race than my talent or hard work. No, that's not, Jimmy stammered. Because if that's what you were implying, Denzel continued, his voice growing stronger, then we have a much bigger problem here than just you being unprepared for this interview. The audience was completely transfixed. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was real, raw, and incredibly important. Jimmy Kimmel, the host who was supposed to be in control, looked completely lost. I think, Denzel said, straightening his jacket, that I've heard enough. He started to remove his microphone, his movements deliberate and dignified despite the chaos of the situation. Wait, Denzel, don't go, Jimmy pleaded, suddenly realizing that his show was falling apart in real time. Let's talk about this. Let's work this out. Denzel paused and looked directly at Jimmy. You know what, Jimmy? You're right about one thing. People do deserve to know the truth about their heroes. They deserve to know who they really are when the cameras are rolling and when they're not. He handed his microphone to a stunned production assistant who had appeared at his side. And what they've seen tonight is who you really are. The words hung in the air like a judge's final verdict. Jimmy stood there, mouth slightly open, as the full weight of what Denzel had just said settled over the entire studio. The audience sat in stunned silence, many of them looking genuinely upset by what they had just witnessed. Denzel, please. Jimmy tried one more time, his voice cracking slightly. I think there's been a misunderstanding here. Denzel turned back to face him, and the look in his eyes was one of complete disappointment. A misunderstanding? Jimmy, the only misunderstanding here is that I thought you were a better man than this. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of what was quickly becoming the most uncomfortable moment in late-night television history. Jimmy's producers were frantically trying to figure out what to do. Cut to commercial? Keep rolling? This was uncharted territory. Look, maybe I came on a little strong, Jimmy said, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. But you have to understand, there's pressure in this job. People expect certain things. What people? Denzel asked, his voice calm but firm. What people expect you to ambush your guests with lies and personal attacks? Jimmy ran his hand through his hair, sweat visible on his forehead under the hot studio lights. It's not personal, Denzel. It's television. It's just television? Denzel repeated, and now he sounded genuinely incredulous. So that makes it okay? That's your excuse for trying to tear down someone's reputation? The audience was watching this exchange like a tennis match, heads turning back and forth between the two men. But this wasn't entertainment anymore. This was a character being revealed in real time. And it wasn't pretty. I was doing my job, Jimmy insisted weakly. Your job? Denzel shook his head slowly. Jimmy, your job is to entertain people. Your job is to make them laugh, to give them a break from their problems for an hour. Your job is not to destroy people for ratings. But the ratings, Jimmy started to say, then seemed to realize how that sounded. There it is, Denzel said quietly. There's the truth. This was all about ratings. You thought you could create some controversy, get some headlines, maybe boost your numbers by tearing me down. Jimmy opened his mouth to deny it, but no words came out. His face was red now, whether from embarrassment or anger or both, nobody could tell. You know what's really sad about this? Denzel continued, his voice filled with genuine disappointment. There are real issues in this industry, real problems that deserve attention and discussion. But instead of addressing those, you decided to create fake drama for entertainment. The silence in the studio was deafening. Even the band members were looking down at their instruments, unable to meet anyone's eyes. I've been in this business for 3 decades, Denzel said, his voice carrying clearly throughout the room. I've worked with hundreds of people, from the biggest stars to the newest production assistants, and I've always tried to treat everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of their position. He looked directly at Jimmy. Something you clearly don't understand. Jimmy's whole body seemed to deflate. Denzel, You what? Denzel asked. You're sorry? You made a mistake? You got carried away? Jimmy nodded frantically. Yes, exactly. I got carried away. This isn't who I am. But it is though, isn't it? Denzel replied. Because when you thought you could get away with it, when you thought you could score some easy points, this is exactly who you became. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. This wasn't just a celebrity feud anymore. This was a lesson in character, playing out in front of millions of people. You had a choice tonight, Jimmy, Denzel continued. You could have chosen to be professional. You could have chosen to be respectful. You could have chosen to actually do your job and entertain people. Instead, you chose this. Jimmy looked around the studio desperately, as if searching for someone to help him out of this situation. But there was no help coming. His own staff members were looking at him like they didn't recognize him. I want to apologize, Jimmy said suddenly, his voice shaky. To you, to the audience, to everyone watching at home. This isn't how I wanted this to go. Denzel studied him for a long moment. You know what, Jimmy? I actually believe that you didn't want it to go this way. But that makes it worse, not better. What do you mean? I mean that if this was planned, if this was some kind of calculated attack, at least that would show some kind of strategy, some kind of purpose. But this just shows that when you're under pressure, when things get a little difficult, you lash out at innocent people. Jimmy's shoulders sagged. I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say, Denzel replied. The damage is done. Your audience has seen who you really are when things get tough. And so have I. He started walking toward the edge of the stage, his movements dignified and purposeful, despite the chaos surrounding him. Denzel, wait, Jimmy called after him. Don't leave like this. Let's finish the interview. Let's talk about your movie. Denzel paused at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. You know what, Jimmy? My movie's about integrity. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it costs you something. He looked out at the audience, many of whom were nodding in agreement. I hope everyone here tonight, everyone watching at home, remembers that we all have choices to make. We can choose to build people up or tear them down. We can choose to be honest or to spread lies. We can choose to treat others with respect or to use our position to hurt them. He looked back at Jimmy one last time. You made your choice tonight, and so did I. With that, Denzel Washington walked off the Jimmy Kimmel live stage, leaving behind a host who looked completely shattered and an audience that had just witnessed something they would never forget. The cameras kept rolling as Jimmy stood there alone, the weight of what he had done finally sinking in. We'll be right back, he mumbled to the camera, but his voice was barely audible. As the show cut to commercial, everyone in that studio knew they had just watched something historic, not the kind of television moment that gets talked about because it was funny or entertaining, but the kind that gets remembered because it showed the true character of everyone involved, and there was no question about who had come out looking like the better man.